Has everyone got a spoon? Yes, hurrah! Okay, fantastic. We can't talk about food unless we eat as well. And I think that's more, it's quite surprised when I arrived. There's quite a lot of people, and this is the jelly we have. But it's pretty powerful as well. I think there's a little bit of alcohol in all of it, so it'll go around. Anyway, I'm Sam Bompas of Bompas and Parr. We do things like we build cigarettes-flavored chewing gum factories with 40,000 different flavors. At the moment, we've just finished building a whiskey tornado that you put a straw in it, and it sort of intoxicates you as you suck up all the whiskey. And it's quite good, actually. It's a very efficient intoxication because it goes straight through the lungs, thereby bypassing your liver. And so you get 40% more booze for your money's worth from the tornado. And chocolate waterfalls as well. 12,000 litres an hour. It's a lot of chocolate. We're never doing chocolate again. In fact, all the people in the studio always well, they're going to quit if we ever do chocolate again. But we're best known for jellies. Hurrah! We love jellies. Today is a bit of a confessional. And in terms of the lost reality, I was going to talk about jelly, going from sort of pure jelly purism, to the dark side of jelly. And we'll see how it turns out. Here's 5 years ago. We're sort of very, very young, enthusiastic, really wanted to set out and make the world's best jellies. Living with my little sister at the time, and we just had a kitchen. The front room was full of these massive industrial fridges. The floors were always sticky, but we're making jellies made with fresh fruits, and they were absolutely gorgeous. And I think we've got a film that sort of tells a little bit about how he started off. To a lot of events, sometimes you have thousands of people turn up to. The great thing about
this is our studio.
Like this is it gives you a real sense of authority. And if you shout at people through this, they really take you seriously. I think my parents were very wonderful and supportive. Initially were encouraging even if they were raising an eyebrow. Like my dad was, you know what, at least it's a good laugh. Like I've got a good story about my ridiculous son when I go out for dinner with people. And they like jelly as well.
Well, yeah, they say they like jelly. We started 5 years ago, and Sam and I were convinced that we had the greatest thing to hit the world ever, which would be jelly. And we went to Borough Market, which is London's sort of biggest food market for foodies. And we approached Borough Market and said, look, we've got this great idea. We're going to make and revive fresh fruit Victorian jelly. Said, are you in? And they said, well, actually, they didn't even reply.
This summer, Bompas and Parr have a crazy golf course on the roof of Selfridges. By making London landmarks, it looked like cake. In fact, 2 years ago, Selfridges, they turned around and said that the very idea itself is ridiculous. They thought that golf balls would be flying down from 6 stories above Europe's busiest shopping street and braining people milling about below. But this summer, we worked out that we could net all the way down the roof, literally about half the length of Selfridges itself, a full city block, and stop people being injured by errant golf balls.
No, I think sometimes you go on personal adventures, and for me, it was making the St. Paul's Cathedral jelly mould. It's 0.5 thick copper that's silver plated on the inside. So normally moulds tin plated, but it had to be silver because it's quite complicated form. And this was, it was electroformed over a mandrel made out of wax. So it was quite a challenge to do that, but there's only 2 of these in the world, and the other one's in a museum.
It's sometimes important to just reflect that actually 5 years ago we were sat at my kitchen table making jellies in Tupperware to serve for free to Boy Scouts who didn't particularly want to eat them. So, it's good to just bear that in mind when we're very, very worried about the ambition and the scale of the next project we're working on.
Okay, it kind of goes on, but that's more than enough. Anyway, we've got such limited time. We've got to make this confession and show
how we got there. So 5 years ago, we really wanted to make these fabulous jellies. Couldn't afford any of those beautiful antique copper molds because collectors would collect them up and polish them a bit and not use them. And so then Harry, who my business partner you saw there, I do more talking than he does normally. He trained as an architect, and he worked out that he could use the sort of 3D printing techniques that you learned about in the previous lecture to make and design, that he'd learned to design buildings, to design jellies. Hurrah! And the amazing thing is, we've literally been living off it ever since for 5 years. And the thing that I'm a bit worried about now is that you all know how to do it as well. So there's potentially a little trouble. But they look spectacular. You just use that very simple 3D printing, and you get these fantastic jellies. And then we thought, let's challenge ourselves to really push it. We got asked all the world's best architects to design jellies, and got thousands of them back. Jellies from Lord Foster, Lord Rogers. That's a brilliant design. It's all modular, and every single one of those jellies is different. And I think the thing when we started out, what I really want to talk about with Lost Reality is food dyes and using dyes and artificial colors, E-numbers in food. And really when we started out, our sovereign ambition was to just make everything from scratch, everything sort of absolutely beautifully, and never sort of bastardizing any jelly by putting in the merest scintilla of any sort of artificial dye. And so we'd literally sort of cook everything fresh. So if we're making a strawberry jelly, we're sort of chopping all the strawberries, getting all the juice out by stewing them up, straining them through jelly bags. When we started off, we'd actually use, because we couldn't afford any jelly bags, we'd just use a very clean pillowcases, which looks pretty gory. It looked like a bloodbath afterwards. But anyway, if we're making a lemon jelly, if you make a lemon jelly, it's so yellowy that it doesn't even look like lemon. So we'd then very carefully put just enough orange juice in it to make it the right lemon color. So it was really pure. And slowly over time, we've been sort of moving. Well, we started off, we had all these fantastic jellies. We thought, let's have a great banquet and invite all of London to it. And we put tickets on sale, and very shortly after putting tickets on sale, 2,000 people bought a ticket, at which point we were really worried, because as you can see with jellies, they don't get much bigger than this. And you had 2,000 people standing around and looking at one of these things. We thought we were going to be lynched, and they'd tear us limb from limb. So what we did is we used every trick we knew how. We sort of massed up hundreds and hundreds of jellies. We had a great big lorry engine underneath the table, so it became a waggle engine, the whole thing vibrating and pulsating. It got worse. We worked with a sound artist to record the sound of jelly wobbling as well, which you can look up the video online. Inexplicably, it was done as a science video for New Scientist. It had more hits than when they turned on CERN for the New Scientist. And I think it's just because it sounds disgusting. It sounds like masturbation. But anyway, the whole thing glowed, and it was great because it started off as quite serious. And there's something about jelly. We had jelly dancers. Heston Blumenthal came along, and he was a sort of celebrity judge, but really people weren't paying attention. It started off very serious and then slowly devolved into this sort of jelly chaos and wrestling. And that's when we learned we've got 2 rules of jellying now. The first is to always use 1 leaf of gelatin for 100 grams of liquid, and that tends to work pretty much. As a rule of thumb. And then the other is, at 11 o'clock, put the jellies away, because it's just going to be a massive food fight. And we do a lot of events now. At that point, we hadn't ever done any events. We didn't realize there's a big cleanup. We had 2,000 people there, and the only people left at the end of the night were my family, my girlfriend, my girlfriend's boyfriend, and Harry's family, and cleaning up 2,000. And we've sort of... We're a bit better at that now. But anyway, that one jelly trick, when we started off, took us on this great adventure and doing people's weddings, jelly funerals, and it started off for Michael Jackson's funeral. And then it got very real as well, because we were in Australia, and we ended up speaking in the oldest funeral home in Australia, a very serious conference, round table with people from Greek Orthodox, Jewish, Christian church, and then we had to go and present. There's a long history of funereal food and jelly. It is very serious. Jellies around as America, jellies everywhere, fashion jellies, and even jellies in a museum. But all the time, we were looking at how could we do it with, not using lots of dyes. So even this is just using the tonic water in quinine and then banging a UV light off it. So like when you get a gin and tonic and it glows in the nightclub to make a jelly. It was art. I don't know how. They asked us to explain it. It was tricky. But anyway, actually, this is a good time for jellies. Can we have some helpers? So we've got a tutti frutti jelly. It's rather good. If you can see that in the light, it's rather gorgeous. All the flavors under the sun. So if that could go into that corner and work its way back. That jelly, and if that could go over there, and this jelly, and if that could go, cicada, if that could go over to that corner and then work its way back. And we started turning to the dark side when we hosted a black banquet. And it's about 3 years ago. So yeah, black banquet's pretty challenging. There's not a lot of black food. If you look at The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, Her Lover, though, you know that you can charge 50% more for it, and it's quite exotic, because you're literally supposed to, and the French chef there has this wonderful speech, and you look it up on the internet, and he says you're literally eating death, and by eating the black food. So he wrote down a fabulous list of all the black food that we could think of, Guinness, soya, cola, black garlic. It went on and on and on, and we struggled through 8 courses. We used a lot of cuttlefish, which was getting quite difficult to sustain when it started getting to the desserts. But we got through it without any dye. The turning point, when we turned our back on natural colors and fully embraced E-numbers, came with Campari. And who likes Campari? Yes. And it's like my favorite drink ever is a Negroni. Amongst chefs, it's a secret handshake. If you have a Negroni, then they know you're a good guy. It's just the gin, vermouth, and Campari, the triumvirate together. Yeah, it's the most perfect drink. And it starts doing a lot of research into it. The interesting thing is in the drinks industry, you don't have to put any labeling on your bottles. So everything else, all the food packaging, turn your package over, and you know exactly what's going into it. They'll tell you all the E-numbers. In drink, they don't do that. So you turn the bottle around, no idea what's in it. Campari, it's got 37 secret ingredients, known only by 3 people. They're all natural. One of them is E120, which is glorious, actually. It's really good. It's actually made from little tiny bugs, which are crushed up. And then, that goes in Campari. So we got really excited by that, and we're like, well, if you can put that in drinks, how far can you go? And we started making somewhat jollier concoctions. So this is really pleased with this. This is a blue Negroni, and I've got a blue Negroni jelly here, which you can try. If you could have could that go to which side down the back needs it? Okay, down there, okay. Whoever shouts the loudest. It's really great. Well done. So that's made using a white Negroni recipe, which uses Suze instead of the Campari, and then 1 part Suze, which is a gentian liqueur, to a half a part of quite a botanicals forward gin, something like Tanqueray, and then like a Lillet as well, and then just a load of food dye, E131. That's our man, and it's rather wonderful. But yeah, so then we started getting even further into E-numbers. They're glorious when you start exploring E-numbers. Gold is an E-number. It's E175, and actually, well, when you sit down in a room like this, you just always have a fabulous meal. Gilding a pig's head, though, you go even further astray down the dark side. This is a friend of mine's who is a food stylist in New York, and she sent me this photo, and I said, that's amazing. How did you do that? And she said, oh, that's terribly easy. You just gild the whole thing. And Pig's heads are really cheap. They're only about £5 from a good butcher. And you get them, and you get the gold leaf. And gold leaf you can get from an artist supplier, or we get ours from the tradesman's shop, Leyland's. You've got to make sure you get it above 22.4 carats, because otherwise it's going to have copper and all sorts of things like that, so it's not food safe. But above that, great, really good to eat. It's totally inert, so it passes straight through you. It's impossible to achieve that, though, with gold leaf, and you've just got to go one step beyond and think, I'm not going to eat this, it's probably decorative, and hit the gold spray paint. And then you get a really good £5 table centre. It's a winner. But then when we started looking at other uses of dyes as well, I mean, this looks horrific. This is absolutely horrific, but this is someone who's actually saving the environment by tracing glacial meltwater flow by using one of our other favorite ingredients, which is rhodamine, which can be used as a tracing element. But now, we've fully gone to the dark side and embraced E-numbers and colorings. It just makes life much more exciting and vibrant and colorful. So we've got now the suitcase of E-numbers. You color around, and it just brings joy to my heart. Some of them have been quite used. These are the precious samples, and the girls in the studio can't stop using them, so we keep on having to replace even our samples now. And they're just great. You can even get, if you push it really far, bioluminescent enzymes that make jellyfish and fireflies grow. They're at the moment, they're kind of semi-legal, but they are spectacular when you use them when you're cooking. You get them from China, look online, Prolume, they're gorgeous. They're safe, but they do taste disgusting, so you've got to combine them with quite powerful flavors. So now, the most hairy and muscular of all our food additives, and one I'm in love with, and appropriate because we've just had St. Patrick's Day, and that is fluoriscein. It's actually, it's been a bit of a real quest to get hold of it. It's the stuff that they use to dye the Chicago River green each year at St. Patrick's Day. And it's done privately. It's done by the Guild of Plumbers. And they quite often, it's used in eye surgery. It was used in Mountain Dew. It was used to trace the flow of water. So if you had a leak, a plumber would put some of it in your water tank, and then they'd shine a UV light on it. Because it's UV reactive, it would shine up where the leak is. But it's amazing stuff. But they now keep it very, very secret as to what it is and what makes their water that color. And they're very nefarious about it. They say it's all natural colors, there's nothing artificial, it's some vegetables that we put in and I don't know any vegetables that color. But we managed to get hold of a sample of the water, sent it to the leading UK's dye specialists, who we're now good friends with. They're called dyes.co.uk. They're experts. And they carefully retroanalyzed it. They said, if it's fluoriscein, we can give you a lot of this stuff. And it is amazing. It's a rest the ice. We've filled boating lakes with it. It's actually, although it's safe, it's got a half-life. So if you put it in a watercourse, it'll disappear really quickly, although slightly nervous about the half-life thing. But it is safe. Created a jelly. You know, I said we couldn't do big jellies. We found out that using this, not being wasteful, because this is not food stuff, you could actually make epic jellies. I made a jelly that's the size of 2 Olympic swimming pools, 55 tons of jelly, around SS Great Britain last year, and that was for a budget of about £500, which was, and a lot of love. We put together all the ingredients, and then the other problem we had is we didn't have any labor to make the jelly. We phoned up the museum, we said, look, we've got a problem here, we've got all the ingredients, I'm not going to be able to hire in all the team to do it. Could you source some labor? So they went out to Bristol, and they managed to contact the people doing all the Bristol community payback, who are sort of just fresh out of prison. So we turned up on site, and our team that day, one of them had they had really good faces, a real physiognomous delight. One of them had a scar right across his face, and he was called Hammer, and we could only guess. But anyway, so we're working a project at the moment on dyeing the river in Durham that colour, and then UV lighting it, and then having a great party on it as well in September. So hopefully everyone will be able to come. And well, actually, it's just to show you how marvelous it all is. Just a single drop of the stuff has the most sort of profound effect. It's rather beautiful. And you can sort of see it blossoming. And it's just amazing. So the good thing is, just think what we could do with all this much. It's spectacular and it's beautiful. And there we are. Hope you got some good questions. Here's to the joys of going beyond reality. Sometimes you just have to enjoy it and let loose. Thank you very, very much.